The contract hit the desk with a slap that made Ada Okafor's heart jump. She stared at the man across from her, Park Hyun-Soo, Seoul's most powerful tech CEO, devastatingly handsome in his tailored black suit. His dark eyes met hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "I'm not offering a business partnership, Miss Okafor," he said, his voice low and controlled. "I'm offering marriage." Ada's mouth went dry. "Excuse me? 2 years. Contract marriage. Your family's company gets the partnership and debt relief. I get a wife to satisfy my traditional family and secure the merger I need." He pushed the papers toward her. "It's purely business." "You're insane," Ada whispered, but her hands were already reaching for the document. Her father's tech consulting firm in Lagos was drowning. This was their only lifeline. She scanned the terms, her mind racing. 2 years, then a quiet divorce. Separate lives. Public appearances only. "Why me?" she asked. Something flickered in Hyun-Soo's expression. "You're perfect on paper. Educated, professional, and you need this as much as I do." But when their eyes met again, Ada felt it. A pull, electric and undeniable. His jaw tightened, and she watched him grip the edge of his desk. "Sign it," he said roughly. "Before I change my mind about what this arrangement should be." Ada's hand trembled as she picked up the pen. This was madness. She was agreeing to marry a stranger, a man the tabloids called Korea's most eligible bachelor or not. The rumors about his sexuality had followed him for years. No dating history. No scandals. Nothing. She signed her name in sharp, deliberate strokes. Hyun-Soo took the contract without touching her hand, but she felt the heat radiating from him anyway. "The wedding is in 2 weeks. My assistant will handle everything. You'll move into my penthouse 3 days before to avoid media speculation. That's it. No getting to know each other. This is a contract, Miss Okafor. Not a romance." But his eyes betrayed him, tracing her curves before he caught himself and looked away. "I'll see you in 2 weeks." He left without another word. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Ada quit her job, packed her life into suitcases, and ignored her best friend Chiamaka's concerned questions. "You're marrying a man you don't know," Chiamaka said over their last video call before Ada's flight. "A man who might be gay, might be asexual, might be anything. This is crazy." "It's business," Ada insisted. 2 years, then freedom. "And my family survives." But she couldn't stop thinking about the way Hyun-Soo had looked at her. Like she was water and he was dying of thirst. Seoul was overwhelming. The driver who picked Ada up from the airport wasn't Hyun-Soo, just another reminder that this was a transaction. The penthouse was exactly what she expected. Modern, minimalist, expensive, and cold as ice. Ms. Jung, Hyun-Soo's efficient assistant, showed her around. "Your room is here. Mr. Park's is on the opposite side. Breakfast is at 7, dinner at 8. He works late most nights. Will I see him before the wedding?" Ms. Jung's expression flickered with something like pity. "Mr. Park is very busy." That night, Ada couldn't sleep. The penthouse was too quiet, too perfect. Around midnight, desperate for tea and distraction, she wandered to the kitchen and froze. Hyun-Soo stood at the counter in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair slightly mussed, looking younger and more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. He looked up, surprised. For a moment, they just stared at each other. "I didn't mean to disturb you," Ada said, suddenly aware she was in sleep shorts and a tank top. "You're not." But his eyes said otherwise, tracing her curves before he forced his gaze away. "Can't sleep. New place. New everything." She moved to the kettle, hyper-aware of the space between them. "What's your excuse?" "Work. There's a hostile takeover attempt I'm dealing with. At midnight. Billionaires don't sleep." The corner of his mouth twitched. Something like that. They made tea in silence, the domesticity of it both comfortable and charged. When they sat at the kitchen island, Ada felt the weight of everything unsaid between them. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "You can ask. I might not answer. Why have you never dated? The rumors say you're gay or asexual or—" "The rumors are convenient," he interrupted, his jaw tight. They keep people from asking questions. From expecting things I didn't think I could give. Didn't think. Past tense. Hyun-Soo stood abruptly. Good night, Miss Okafor. He left, but not before Ada saw the conflict in his eyes. Something was happening here, something neither of them had planned for. The wedding was a spectacle. Hundreds of guests, designer everything, cameras flashing from every angle. Ada wore a fusion gown that honored both cultures, traditional Nigerian jewel headwrap paired with a Korean Jeogori-inspired bodice. She felt like an actress playing a role. Hyun-Soo was devastating in his tuxedo, playing the perfect groom with practiced ease. But when they stood at the altar and he lifted her veil, everything changed. His hands trembled as they framed her face. The kiss that was supposed to be brief and perfunctory became something else entirely. The moment his lips touched hers, Hyun-Soo froze. Then he kissed her like a drowning man finding air, desperate and hungry and barely controlled. Ada melted into him, shocked by the intensity, by the way her body responded. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the officiant had to clear his throat twice to continue. The reception was torture. Hyun-Soo barely touched her after that kiss, maintaining careful distance while playing the attentive husband for cameras. But Ada caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, his eyes dark and conflicted. Your husband can't stop staring at you, Chiamaka whispered. For a man who's supposedly not interested in women, he looks pretty desperate. It's just for show, Ada said, but her voice lacked conviction. The wedding night shattered her. They returned to the penthouse in silence, and Hyun-Soo immediately retreated to his study. Good night, he said, the word sharp and final. Ada stood alone in her designated bedroom, still the guest room, and tried not to feel rejected. This was what she'd signed up for. No romance, no intimacy, no expectations. So why did it hurt so much? She lay in the darkness, unable to sleep. Around 2 a.m, she heard footsteps in the hallway. They paused outside her door. She held her breath, heart pounding. Would he knock? After a long, agonizing moment, the footsteps retreated. Ada pressed her face into the pillow and let the tears fall. The next morning, Hyun-Soo was gone before she woke. This became their pattern. He left early, returned late, avoided being alone with her at all costs. They maintained the appearance of a happy marriage for public events, but in private, they were strangers. A week into the marriage, Ada reached her breaking point. She found Hyun-Soo in his study around midnight and didn't bother knocking. We need to talk. He looked up, surprised. About what? About this farce. About the fact that we're married but you treat me like I have the plague. About what the hell happened at our wedding that made you kiss me like that and then spend a week avoiding me. Hyun-Soo stood slowly, something dangerous flickering in his expression. You want to talk about that kiss? Yes. Fine. He moved around the desk, and Ada fought the urge to step back. That kiss was a mistake. It won't happen again. Why? Because this is a business arrangement. Because you deserve better than, he cut himself off, jaw clenched. Better than what? A husband who actually wants me? You think I don't want you? The question was raw, tortured. I've wanted you since the moment you walked into my office. I've spent every night for 3 weeks hard and aching because I can't stop thinking about you. About your smile, your voice, the way you look at me like you see past all my walls. Ada's breath caught. Then why? Because I don't know how to do this. The confession burst out of him. Because I've spent my entire life convinced I was incapable of this kind of desire. I tried relationships. Felt nothing. Everyone assumed I was gay or broken or defective. Then you appear and suddenly I'm feeling everything, wanting everything, and I don't know if it's real or if I'm just finally responding to someone and you happen to be there. The vulnerability in his voice broke something open in Ada's chest. This powerful man was terrified, not of her, but of what she made him feel. You're not broken, she said softly, stepping closer. You kissed me like you were starving. You avoid me because you want me too much, not too little. Ada. There's only one way to find out if this is real. She kissed him. Hyun-Soo's control shattered. He backed her against the wall, his body pressing against hers as he kissed her with desperate intensity. His hands found her waist, pulling her curves against him, and he groaned. "You have no idea," he murmured against her mouth, "how much I've wanted to do this. Show me." They stumbled toward his bedroom, a tangle of reaching hands and shared breaths. When they finally came together, it felt like something fundamental shifted. Hyun-Soo moved slowly, reverently, like she was something precious he'd been denied his entire life. Afterwards, he held her like she might disappear, his face buried in her neck. "I've never felt this before," he admitted roughly. "Never wanted someone this way. You've awakened something in me I didn't know existed." Ada stroked his hair, feeling utterly content. "Maybe you're demisexual. You need emotional connection before desire. Maybe I just needed you." But morning brought doubt. Ada woke alone, the sheets beside her cold. Panic seized her chest. Had last night been a mistake in his eyes? She found him in the kitchen, already dressed for work, his mask firmly back in place. "Last night," he started, not meeting her eyes. "Was a mistake," she finished, heart sinking. "No. But it complicated things." "How?" "Because this was supposed to be simple business. Now he struggled for words. "Now I can't stop thinking about you. Can't focus on work. Can't sleep because I want you in my bed. This isn't what I agreed to. Would you rather go back to avoiding each other?" "No." The word was immediate, honest. "But I don't know how to be a real husband, Ada." "Then we'll figure it out together." He studied her for a long moment, then pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "I have to go to Singapore for 3 days. Business that can't be delayed. When I get back, we'll talk. Really talk about what this marriage means. Promise?" "Promise." But 3 days became 5, then a week. Hyun-Soo called occasionally, his voice distant and professional. Ada tried not to feel abandoned, but doubt crept in with each passing day. Had he changed his mind? Was he using the trip to avoid dealing with their relationship? On day 10, Chiamaka called. "There's a charity gala tonight. Hanjin Tech is sponsoring it. You should go. Hyun-Soo's not even in the country." "Exactly. Show them you're not sitting at home waiting. You're his wife. Act like it." The Four Seasons Hotel glittered with Seoul's elite. Ada felt out of place despite her designer gown, hyper-aware of the whispers following her. Park Hyun-Soo's mysterious wife. The arrangement marriage. The African nobody he married for unknown reasons. She was contemplating escape when a man approached. Handsome, confident, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mrs. Park, I'm Minute Tae-young, a business associate of your husband's." His hand extended. "He didn't mention you'd be attending tonight." "He doesn't know. He's still in Singapore." "Ah." Something calculating entered Tae-young's expression. "Then you must be lonely, stuck in that penthouse all alone. Perhaps I could keep you company." His hand touched her arm, and Ada tensed. "She's not alone." The voice came from directly behind her, ice-cold and furious. Ada spun to find Hyun-Soo standing there, still in travel clothes, looking absolutely livid. When had he arrived? "We're leaving," he said, taking her arm with barely controlled force. "Now." Tae-young's smile turned smug. "Touched a nerve, Park?" Hyun-Soo didn't respond, just led Ada out of the ballroom. The elevator ride was tense and silent, his jaw clenched so tight Ada could see the muscle jumping. In the car, his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Are you going to tell me what that was about?" Ada finally asked. Silence. "Hyun-Soo. Minute Tae-young has been trying to destroy my company for years," he said, his voice empty of emotion, which was far more terrifying than rage. "Seeing him anywhere near you, touching you." He pulled into the penthouse garage with barely controlled aggression. Inside, he finally exploded. "What were you thinking, going there alone? Do you have any idea how dangerous that was?" "Dangerous?" It was a charity gala, not a war zone. It was a room full of people who would love to exploit any weakness I show. "And you," he stopped, breathing hard. "You're the biggest weakness I've ever had. I'm not some damsel who needs protecting. I know that." The words burst out of him. But watching him touch your arm, smile at you like he had any right, Knowing I've been gone for 10 days and you probably thought I was avoiding you again, he pushed both hands through his hair, looking tortured. I wanted to break his hands for daring to come near you. Ada's anger deflated. You're jealous. Insanely. He pulled her close, forehead pressed to hers. I cut my trip short because I couldn't stand being away from you anymore. I rushed to that gala the moment I landed because I knew you'd be there. And seeing another man trying to, his arms tightened possessively. You're mine, Ada. I know I have no right to feel that way after disappearing, but I can't help it. Then stop disappearing, she said fiercely. Stop running every time things get real between us. I'm your wife, Hyun-Soo. Start acting like you want me to be. I do want that. He kissed her desperately. I want everything with you. It terrifies me how much. They barely made it to the bedroom. What happened there erased any doubt about whether Hyun-Soo wanted her. He showed her exactly how much, over and over, until they were both exhausted and satisfied. I'm sorry, he murmured against her hair later. For disappearing, for making you doubt, for being terrible at this. You're learning. We both are. Stay with me tonight. In my bed. Always. The next few weeks brought a tentative new normal. Hyun-Soo still worked insane hours, but he came home to Ada every night. They learned each other slowly. His love of classical music and old films. Her passion for photography and cooking traditional Nigerian dishes that made him addicted to jollof rice. But the business world noticed the change. Suddenly Ada was invited everywhere, her presence at Hyun-Soo's side expected. Some people were welcoming. Others were calculating, looking for ways to use her against her husband. You need to be careful, Hyun-Soo warned after one particularly tense dinner party. There are people who'd love to hurt me through you. I can handle myself. I know. But let me worry anyway. His protectiveness was endearing and occasionally suffocating. He had security follow her discreetly, called multiple times a day, vetted everyone who came near her. Ada understood why. In his world, love was leverage. A month into their real marriage, everything changed. Ada was working from home when Ms. Jung appeared, looking shaken. Mrs. Park, there's been an accident. Mr. Park's car was forced off the road. He's at Seoul Memorial Hospital. The world tilted. Ada barely remembered the drive, barely processed Ms. Jung's explanations about the hostile takeover attempt, about enemies who decided violence was acceptable. She found Hyun-Soo in a private room, arguing with doctors despite the bandages wrapping his ribs and the obvious pain carved into his features. You need to rest, the doctor was saying. I need to handle this situation before. Hyun-Soo stopped when he saw Ada in the doorway. You shouldn't be here. Where else would I be? She moved to his bedside carefully. You're hurt. I'm fine. It looks worse than it is. Liar. Her hands were gentle as she touched his face, checking for damage. What happened? Someone decided sending me a message was worth attempted murder. His jaw clenched. They're going to regret it. The doctor cleared his throat. Mr. Park needs rest. No stress, no work for at least 3 days. Impossible. I have a company to run. Ada made an executive decision. Everyone out. Now. The medical staff fled quickly. Once alone, she turned to Hyun-Soo with her arms crossed. You're going to rest. You're going to let your team handle business. And you're going to stop pretending you're invincible. Ada. No. Her voice broke. You don't get to almost die and act like it's nothing. I was terrified. I thought I'd lost you before we even had a real chance. Something in his expression softened. He pulled her carefully onto the bed, wincing slightly. I'm sorry. You're right. I'll rest. His arms came around her. But we need to talk about security. This attack wasn't random. Someone is targeting me, and by extension, targeting you. What do you mean? I mean whoever did this knows that hurting you would destroy me. 3 days later, Ada was leaving the penthouse for a lunch meeting when 2 men in masks grabbed her in the parking garage. She fought, using everything Hyun-Soo had taught her in their self-defense sessions. But they were stronger, prepared. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was her phone tumbling across the concrete. Hyun-Soo's name still displayed from her last call. She woke in a concrete room, hands zip-tied, head throbbing. Two men stood guard, and through a grimy window she could see they were in some kind of abandoned warehouse. Finally awake, one said in Korean. Good. Mr. Park should be getting our video by now. Let's see if his wife is worth destroying his company for. Terror spiked through her, but Ada forced it down. Hyun-Soo would come. She knew it with absolute certainty. At the penthouse, Hyun-Soo stared at the video on his phone with absolute fury. Ada tied to a chair, frightened but defiant, while a distorted voice made demands. Give up the merger. Step down as CEO. Transfer controlling shares. Sir. Ms. Jung stood in the doorway, looking sick. What do we do? Find her. His voice was empty of emotion, which was far more terrifying than rage. Use every resource we have. Trace the video. Check traffic cameras. Call in every favor I'm owed. I don't care what it costs. And their demands? Stall them. Make them think I'm considering it. He was already pulling on his jacket, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. But I'm not giving them anything except their own deaths. This could start a war. It already has. Hyun-Soo's eyes were black ice. They took my wife. They signed their death warrants. It took 4 hours to find the location. 4 hours of Hyun-Soo mobilizing resources, calling in dangerous favors, revealing connections that proved his world wasn't entirely legitimate. He assembled a team and planned the extraction with military precision. The assault was swift and brutal. Hyun-Soo cut through resistance like a knife, nothing mattering except reaching Ada. He burst through the door where she was held, and relief flooded her features when she saw him. I knew you'd come, she whispered. He cut her bonds with trembling hands, checking for injuries with barely controlled panic. Did they hurt you? Nothing permanent. You came so fast. I would have torn soul apart to find you. He pulled her against him, burying his face in her hair. I would have destroyed everything I've built. None of it matters compared to you. The drive back was silent except for Ada's occasional trembling. Adrenaline was wearing off, leaving exhaustion and residual fear. Hyun-Soo held her hand the entire time, jaw clenched. At the penthouse, he helped her shower with tender hands, then carried her to bed despite her protests. He held her like she might disappear. You were taken because of me, he said, his voice wrecked. Because I was arrogant enough to think I could protect you by keeping you close. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe loving you makes me weak. Don't, Ada said fiercely. Don't you dare pull away from me now. I chose this. I chose you. Yes, your world is dangerous, but I'd rather face that with you than be safe without you. Especially after today, because you moved heaven and earth to find me. That's not weakness. That's love. He kissed her desperately, and what followed was tender and intense, both of them needing to reconnect. Afterwards, as they lay tangled together, Hyun-Soo made a decision. Marry me again. Ada laughed tiredly. We're already married. I know. But the first time was business, cold and transactional. I want to marry you again properly, with vows that actually mean something. I want to choose you publicly, irrevocably, because I love you. Her breath caught. You love me. Desperately. Completely. So much it terrifies me. His hand found hers. You awakened something in me I thought was dead or non-existent. You made me feel desire, passion, love. So yes, I love you, and I want everyone to know it. Yes, Ada whispered, tears streaming. Yes, I'll marry you again. I love you too. 6 months later, they stood on a private beach in Jeju Island with only close friends and family present. Ada wore traditional Nigerian iro and buba, Hyun-Soo in a hanbok, their cultures beautifully fused. When Hyun-Soo promised to love her forever, to choose her every day, to build a life worth living together, there wasn't a dry eye present. You're mine, he murmured against her lips when they kissed. Completely and irrevocably mine. And you're mine, Ada replied. No more doubts. You've proven you're capable of love. That evening, back at their penthouse, Ada stood in the bathroom staring at 2 pink lines that changed everything. She was pregnant. She found Hyun-Soo in his study. When he saw her expression, concern flooded his features. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She held out the test. Everything's right. Hyun-Soo stared at it, then sank to his knees, hands trembling as they found her stomach. A baby. His voice cracked. We're having a baby. Are you happy? Happy. He looked up at her with such raw joy it stole her breath. You've given me everything, Ada. You made me capable of love. You showed me I wasn't broken. You gave me a real marriage, a real life, and now a family. He pressed his face to her stomach. How could I be anything but grateful? They held each other as tears fell, both overwhelmed by the enormity of what they'd built from a cold contract. What started as a business arrangement had become the greatest love story of their lives. Ada had awakened something in Hyun-Soo he'd thought impossible, and he'd shown her that love could bloom in the most unexpected places. Their daughter would be born into a world filled with love, the product of two people who dared to turn a contract into a forever promise. And if you loved Ada and Hyun-Soo's journey from contract to true love, don't forget to subscribe to Afro-Korean Stories TV. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling us your favorite moment, and turn on notifications because Season 2 is coming soon with even more drama, passion, and unexpected twists. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Until then, besties, remember that sometimes the best love stories start with the most unexpected arrangements.